Rust Belt Capital is an elite Ohio-based private equity firm with a specialization in long-term, high-cash flow multifamily investments. If you're looking for long-term recurring income, you should check out Rust Belt Capital. From their approach to managing risk, to the locations they invest, the product quality they provide, this firm is serious about what they do, which is why the owners of Rust Belt Capital invest their money in every deal they take on. Review their case studies by visiting rustbeltcapital.com. That's rustbeltcapital.com. Once again, rustbeltcapital.com, or email investor@rustbeltcapital.com.
The total portfolio, right, of investments must include business cash flowing returns. And as I see it, it's the heart of the alternative investor portfolio.
Hello, left fielders. Welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast. Our community is focused on networking and education to help people invest passively and think differently. Let's go.
This is Ashley Wilson from Bar Down Investments, and you are listening to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast.
I'm really excited today to have Kim Daly with us. She's one of the top franchise consultants through her firm, the Daly Coach. She's helped nearly 1,000 franchise owners get their start. She's the co-author of Franchising Freedom, the host of the Create Wealth Through Franchising podcast, and she's a repeat guest. She was on show episode 77 way back in the summer of 2022. So Kim, welcome back to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast.
Thank you for having me back, Jim. I have been waiting for this for so long. I love the left field investors. So excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, the last episode gave us a lot of great information, and we're going to touch on some of that kind of as a review, and then we're going to get into some new stuff. But before we do that, the first question I always ask is, what's your journey? And give us the abbreviated journey, because if people want the full story, they can go back to episode 77. But just tell us how you got into franchising.
So nobody wakes up and says, oh, yeah, my dream is in franchising. Neither did I. But I ended up answering a classified ad in the newspaper, took some twists and turns, became an entrepreneur, only to realize that entrepreneurship is incredibly lonely. And I needed all of the things that a franchise affords, like systems and tools and people support. And so I turned back to franchising 22 years ago, and here I am today. Who knew that this would be the craziest, most wildest adventure of my professional and probably my personal life too. It's a business has that way of impacting everything in your life, right?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, it must be just so interesting to see the 1,000, or so owners that you've helped create these businesses, and to see how they've grown and changed in the future. So maybe you can just touch on how have things changed since, 2002 when you started versus now, and what are all those owners doing? Are they still owning the franchises? Are they not? If you can just kind of tell us how has it been over the last 20 years or 22 years?
Yeah, it's a really, the franchise industry always grows, Jim, despite what's happening in the economy. People invest in franchises, right? So their motivations to invest may change, and what they invest in may change, but they still invest. So what I mean is, like, if the economy is booming and people are wealth building, they want more of the American dream, because that's what we're doing, right? We're building the next big American brands. So they're diving in to build wealth. But if the economy is like tight, people have that scarcity mentality or fear of losing their job, they're looking for control. Well, franchising wins, because owning a business is the best way to control your own financial future. So I've seen it all over 22 years, right? Like, I had my first history-making year in the heart of the recession from 2008. Like, my breakout year was in 2010 when I made history in 2011 in the franchise industry. So I've seen it all. Again, I've seen, the rise of want-based businesses. I've seen the pandemic make us lean more into home services and pet services and the things that people were continuing to spend money on in that pandemic. So I've seen it all.
What's a want-based business?
Oh, so when you think about what the product or service is, right? Like, how is it positioned? Who are you catering to, right? So the want-based business is more of like what people would say could be disposable cash versus, like, if you have a leak in your roof, you need me. You don't want to pay for me, but you need me to fix the roof. But a want, it's kind of a funny, interesting conversation I have with all my investors is because want, I think, is very subjective. And I'll always lead with like, so if you were my candidate, Jim, I'd say, okay, so is my gym membership, Jim, is that a want or a need? So the key word is my gym membership, right? So maybe you don't go to the gym and you're like, oh, Kim, you don't need to go to the gym. And I'd be like, well, wait a minute, right? For my personality and lifestyle, I need to go to the gym. So it becomes subjective. And what I'm doing when I play with people this way, Jim, is helping to open your mind, because when you first think about owning a business, oftentimes everybody wants stable, recession-proof, long, but I'm like, really? Because when you really think about a needs-based business like that, oh, they're highly commoditized and highly competitive. And they're not really the sexy, fun things that when you really think of like Cookie Crumble or Orange Theory Fitness, the things that capture your mind when you think, wow, I could own one of those. It's never the needs. It's always the wants. But then we talk ourselves down from that because we think, well, if the economy gets tight, people aren't going to spend money there. So in consultation, when I'm stretching the conversation to see how people react and to help open people's minds, I have these kind of fun conversations about what is a want and what is a need. And the answer in most cases is it depends on who's spending the money.
Okay, so I want to dig into, our investors, our community is made up of passive investors, people interested in alternatives. So I'd like to talk about what is that avatar like about franchises. I know you've had access and you still have access to a lot of different investor communities. So you must see a lot of people like us, right? So what do you see as key points that interest an investor with that mindset about franchises? Why is it so attractive to the alternative investing type person?
All right. So this is the heart of the conversation. So I am an alternative investor as well. Okay. So I have passive investments. I could quote retire today if I wanted to. I have enough passive income to cover my lifestyle expenses and then some. But the word retire, what does that actually mean to Kim Daly? Nothing. So I am you. We're not separate. We are all the same. So when you look at like most millionaires, they own their own business. The business is the heart of the alternative investment portfolio, right? So if you're currently working for somebody else, and you have building passive income because you can't break free from the W-2, right? Well, eventually, you know that like you may want to break free from the W-2. Well, a business cash flowing return in a franchise doesn't always need you to leave your job either. So it's going to require more time than a passive investment because a business is never going to be truly passive, right? But we don't have to be full time where we're leaving our W-2 and diving in. So for example, there are businesses that like a laundromat. It's my classic example. So when you invest in a laundromat, how much time commitment does the owner need to put in once it's up and operating? Not much, right? That's what I mean. It's different than like investing in a home-based, sales-driven business where the franchisor wants the owner to be that first salesperson. Well, then you got to quit your W-2 and you just basically bought yourself another job to eventually scale and build into a sales organization where you'll realize that you've actually built a business. So there's all different types of investments here in franchising. But to answer the question you asked, which was awesome, the total portfolio, right, of investments must include business cash flowing returns. And as I see it, it's the heart of the alternative investor portfolio. It's the number one cash flowing asset that you can control is the business. But most people don't have an MBA, don't have the confidence that they want to go start a business because they know the statistic that 90% of them fail. So how do you get into business? Through a franchise where it's proven the 90% failure statistic doesn't apply. You don't need an MBA. You don't need prior experience. You're buying systems and tools and processes and technology. That's what you're buying when you buy a franchise. You're buying down all of that learning curve.
And if the regular, starting a business from scratch without a franchise, if that's 90% failure rate, what's the failure rate of a franchise, someone who, like a franchisee, I guess? Is that what the franchisee is, the person buying the business, right? So what's the failure rate there? And then I do want to get back to what we were talking about, but that I just want to understand what's the typical rate of failure.
Yeah, totally fair question, and not a question that I can answer. So, what we do in franchising is highly regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So, every business that you would explore, Jim, with my help, they would disclose their success or failure rate to you in their what's called a franchise disclosure document. It's much like the prospectus of a stock, like it gives you the historical information of the franchise. And in there, they have to disclose how many franchises they've awarded, and then even the names, addresses, and phone numbers of the people who have left the system through failure or just left. They have to remain in there for a certain amount of years. So I would say in general, if you're not quoting me on this, that like our statistics for the types of franchises I work with are like 90% or more are successful. But listen, statistics, I once heard liars use statistics and statistics lie or something like that. So I don't really like to give that statistic because, and here's why. Here's a specific example. Years ago, we used to work with the brand Supercuts. Do you know what Supercuts is? Okay. So, all right. So they're a 30-year-old company, a multi-billion-dollar company, and they report like a 98% success rate. I'm like, what? Only 2% of Supercut stores fail. Like, I'm an optimist, and even that was a little bit too much for me to believe. So when I got to know the people, I understood what they're doing. So what Supercuts does is they don't let their franchisees fail. So they have an incredibly supportive like coaching program that all franchisees have to follow. And if your store is not following the trajectory, they're going to make you raise your hand and sell it. Okay, they're not going to let you lose everything, your shirt, and close your doors because they don't want the failure on their books. They don't want the failed Supercuts in the community. They don't want that reputation. So it's okay, but it's a little bit misguided, right? Like, so if you were just taking it at face value, you'd be like, wow, 98% success rate over 30 years. But when you really dig into the statistics and understand how it works, okay, more than 2% are not working. It's just they're not letting people close the store and completely fail and lose everything. They're going to find you a buyer or take it over as a corporate store and keep the store open and move the owner out.
Okay, and that makes sense. So it's obviously if 90% of organic business starts fail, franchising is significantly less than that and probably flipped on its head. So I think that's good enough to kind of get a direction. Now we've had several in our left field investors community that have opened franchises, right? And I know a number of them worked with you. So what do you see as the common characteristics in the people that choose this path of business ownership, if there are some?
Yeah, I think they're just like hungry for wealth. So the cash flowing return in the business is going to be higher than what you see in passive returns. I know because I have businesses and I have passive returns. Now, the trade-off is a little bit more time commitment to the business than in my passive returns. So there's always a trade-off. You can't get something for nothing. But if you are married and your spouse or your grown children want to get involved in I've done both in left field investor world, right? Where spouses or grown children have got involved in the franchise as the primary person putting in the 20, 30, or 40 hours, whatever the business required of the person to run it. And so it being an investment more in the family, if you will. So, I mean, does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. It does. And, I guess well, I'll skip this for now, but when we look at opportunities, right, as passive investors, we vet the operator, we analyze the deal. And we talked about this a little bit last time. We're talking about how do you vet the franchise, right? And so how should potential franchisees vet the franchise or make sure that it's right for them?
So look, this is why I have a business, Jim. You could go out there on your own and try to vet a franchisor on your own. And I don't even know how people do it. It is an incredibly daunting task. There are 3,000 to 4,000 concepts. Not all franchisors are created equal. Like I would tell you that the number one reason to invest in a franchise is because you have found people who have a proven track record of leadership in building franchises, not in building a business, in building franchises, because you need them to be there to support you as a franchisee. So the leadership team has to have expertise from the business the franchise is in, and then leadership from operation and development in franchising. So when you ultimately say yes to your franchise, you're saying yes to people. You're finding people who have a vision for building a brand, and you align with that, and you look at their track record and go, yeah, that gives me confidence that got you to this point. But you're not investing for the past, you're investing for the future potential. So you want to see that vision and buy into that vision. And that's what you're doing. Otherwise, go be an entrepreneur who's creating it all on your own, right? So it's more about finding people than it is finding a widget, a product, or a service. So doing that on your own, it's very hard. And then when you take in all the nuances of, does this franchise, can I afford it? Does this franchise allow me to be semi-absent, or do I need to be full-time? Like when you come to me, I have 22 years of knowledge and relationship and experience, so that when I bring you 3 to 5 options, I've already cut through all the clutter. They have open territory in the market that you live in. They're perfectly aligned to your objectives, maybe even hobbies and interests, and you can afford them. And I think also I align culture. Like sometimes I meet people, and let's say that their faith is really important to them. Well, there are franchise cultures that are built. There are faith communities. Well, that's going to be really good low-hanging fruit. It might not be alignment for someone who isn't a faith-filled person, right? So it's not like it's an algorithm. Like I punch in characteristics and boom, here's like your matches. There probably are algorithms for that, but there's a human algorithm. It's an art, more than a science of aligning a relationship. And that's where having someone like me with 22 years of knowledge and experience, that's where the win is. And not just in getting you to the 3 to 5 concepts, because again, you could go out there, you could go, Kim, this is what I'm interested in. I'm going straight to the franchisor. But then when I ask a lot of people, they're like, oh, I've looked at franchises in the past and I never did it. And I really listen. The reason they never did it is they didn't have the confidence in the process they went through. Did I ask the right questions? Did I talk to the right people? So when you have someone like me, your trusted advisor who is unbiased, I want you to be a decision maker, yes or no. My process is very efficient, 1 to 2 months. I tell people you're going to say no in 2 weeks. You're going to say yes in 1 to 2 weeks to a no, or 1 to 2 weeks to 1 to 2 months to a yes, because I've been doing this for a long time. So my process will lend you the confidence that you're asking the right questions, you're talking to the right people, challenging your thought process, stretching your thought process a little bit, so that when you say no, you'll know that it's based on certain criteria. And when you say yes, there'll always be an element of uncertainty, even in the yes, because there's no guarantee here, right? It's a leap of faith at the end. But that leap will be a lot shorter, right? You'll really feel the safety net of the franchise underneath you compared to going it, I think, completely on your own.
Yeah, and I think there's so many parallels to that and what we do with passive investing, right? Because investing in alternative assets is scary, but when you combine it with a community that can kind of help guide you, it takes a lot of the fear and uncertainty out of that, and that's what you help with too, is taking some of the fear and uncertainty out based on your experience and your knowledge. So there's a lot of parallels there. Visor provides investors with a secure platform that displays a comprehensive view of all of their holdings on a single, holistic dashboard. From real estate syndications to private equity, crypto to traditional investments, with AI-driven, unbiased, honest insights to maximize return. Visor is your one place to rule them all. Automating performance tracking, projecting future cash flow, analyzing all your financial documents, and much more in one powerful solution, making it easy to follow the money. Sign up for a free 30-day trial now at Visor.co. Investing in syndications can be a daunting task. Wiring a large sum of your hard-earned money to someone you talk to on the phone for 30 minutes can certainly be scary. How can you be confident in what you're doing? Steve Sue, one of the founders of LFI, just published a book called Avoiding Rookie Errors as a Left Field Investor. 20 lessons learned from 14 years of investing in private syndications. This is by far the best book I've read on syndication investing. It's an easy-to-read book, chock full of great advice from Steve's experience as a passive investor. It is a must-read. Whether you're a first-time passive investor or a veteran, go to www.leftfieldinvestors.com/books and click on the link to Avoiding Rookie Errors as a Left Field Investor. If you are a passive investor, you got to read this book. So how do I decide on an industry when I'm looking at franchising? You mentioned you'll show me 3, 4, 5 type businesses. And so I assume there's some collaboration where I tell you what I'm interested in and all that, and then you come up with those. But how does that decision happen?
So, all right. So we're not going to be industry focused. Like in my mix of 3 to 5 concepts, Jim, we may have a pet service business, a senior care business, a home service business, a gym. Like the industry is irrelevant. I know as crazy as that sounds, it really is, as is the product or service. What's more relevant is when you're a business owner, what you're going to realize is all businesses are the same. And what I'm more in tune with is, or looking to be in tune with, is the vision of you as an investor. So what are you trying to create in your life, personally, professionally, and financially? Like all of us are freedom seekers, right? We want time, right? We want to build cash flowing assets and we want time. So when we talk about that, like, but what does that mean? Like for me, I want time for what? Probably so I can go build another business, right? Like, I don't think I'm going to ever like retire. What does that even mean for my personality? It means nothing, right? It means work is optional. It's already optional, right? So like we go down these rabbit holes. I go down these rabbit holes with people, right? So we're all a little bit crazy, Jim. But so we're going to align, your skill set. So like I'm right now building another business and I'm finding myself needing to stretch. And I have days where I'm like, oh, I'm not in my sweet spot. So my sweet spot is engaging with people. My sweet spot is leading a seminar or being on a stage and inspiring people to their dream. That's where I shine. So I need a business that suits those characteristics. I don't want to be down in the weeds. I don't want to be in the minutia. I need people, like if you use the disc profile, I'm a big D and a big I. I need S's and C's around me to do the other things, right? So when we're going through the consultation process, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking for you as a business owner. Who are you and what energizes you? And then I want the franchise to either support you on the things that you're not good at, or for you to recognize, okay, well, I'm going to hire to that weakness of mine because I don't want to spend my time doing those things. So that's more how I'm aligning. And then the other big thing to skill set is your risk tolerance. And this comes back to the first question about want versus need. Right. So I don't want to bring you, if you're like, Kim, I love to work out, owning a gym would be fun. But then when we measure your risk tolerance, you say you're like a 1 on a 10 scale, with 10 being an adventurous person, right? Well, owning, a gym, which is going to ebb and flow, could be way too nerve-wracking overall for your nervous system. And that's stressful. Why put yourself in that arena? Just go enjoy the gym personally, but own a roofing company or own a laundromat or own something that's just a Supercuts, something that's just a little more steady Eddie. But for someone like me, steady Eddie is boring as all get out. I need the ebbs and the flows because that's my whole personality, right? So like, I want to be on the back of the motorcycle, with my hair in the wind. So give me the gym all day long. So every investor is just a little bit different. And I'm able to, it's sort of more like a personality profile that I've like come up with over these 20 years to like pull out of you what's going to get you out of bed and motivate you and make you feel passionate and inspired and show up for your team and show up for your business as much or as little as you want and you need to be successful, and then match the opportunity to that, irrespective of what the business does or even what industry it's in.
That's a great answer. So to follow up on that, we are in our community, we're interested in passive opportunity. So I have two questions in the same. I'm going to ask them both at the same time. What is the most passive franchise opportunity you can think of? Meaning, I don't have to go there every day kind of stuff. And then also, what are some new franchise possibilities that have come up recently?
Okay, well, the most passive business you can own is the one where you're the most highly leveraged. Okay, so it's money or time, people. I wish there was a way around that, but it's money or time. I got to cut to the chase. So if you want to be highly leveraged, what does that mean? Well, you can buy a business with a big brand name, with a big location and a whole staff of people and lots of technology and pay for all of that and a general manager. And you are completely leveraged and you're the CEO who just plants the vision, manages the general manager, and the general manager carries that out. You can be highly leveraged in a business like a laundromat, right? That you're putting your money into a certain number of washer and dryers. They're doing the work and you're collecting the money. Right? You can be highly leveraged through, I don't know if you're familiar with the salon suite. This is my favorite model. It's like a mini mall of all beauty professionals where everybody has an individual suite and they are their own business entities. Like you walk in and it's just like 25 or 30 individual suites and it's lash artists and hairstylists and nail techs and spray tans and all beauty professionals. And they pay you weekly rent. And you have no staff. It's an amazing model. It's the closest thing to a real estate play with business cash flowing returns wrapped in a franchise that I could bring you. So if you want little time commitment, then you have to find a business where you can be leveraged. You could even pick like a day spa where you're hiring a nurse practitioner to run, the clinic, but you're still the CEO with the vision. The business is going to be different from me investing. Like I bought this piece of land next to my house. It was so coveted. I wanted it so bad. And I bought this piece of land and my money is in it now, paid cash. It's all equity. I don't do anything for the land except walk by and ooh and ah at my land, right? Mostly because I don't have to have a neighbor. That's like my ooh. I always say, kids, look at our land. Like it's like I'm a pioneer. So I don't do anything for that, right? It's just I pay tax on it, every property tax, and that's it. Well, a business is never going to be passive like that. But if you have the desire to own a business, I don't think you want it to be like that. I think something in the business investor is a little bit different because my passive investments, I don't have passion for. Like I have an oil and gas investment. You know what I'm passionate about? How much tax it saved me last year. Right? But I know nothing about oil and gas. I met somebody at an alternative investment conference and they told me about the tax break. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But then I learned how many scammers were in oil and gas, right? To your point of the question you asked before about, the short answer to that other question you asked me about how do you do this? It's your network is your net worth, right? Like so much of being successful in our life isn't about what we know. It's who we know. That can open a door or it can be the right referral source to a quality oil and gas investment or, real estate syndication or franchise. So that's the connection there.
What are some new franchises that have come up since maybe last time we spoke?
Oh, there's always new franchises. Oh my gosh. We get trained on new concepts like every week. No joke. But again, it depends on the investor that you want to be. If you're willing, I know to finish the thought I was making before, and I'll come back to this. The person who's inspired by the dream to own a business doesn't want to be truly passive, not in the beginning, right? Because you're a brand ambassador. You're going to have a business that impacts your local community, creating jobs, serving customers local to you, right? So you want to have a passion for bringing the best of that to your community or being the best boss, right? To those people that you create jobs for. So I think it's different. My passion for what I do in my daily coaching business is very different from the passion I have for my passive investments. So it has to stir something in your heart or it's probably not the right deal for you, right? All right. So then to what kind of new franchises are out there? Look, I am the queen of shocking people with like, that's a franchise. Like everybody knows the things like the Jersey Mike's and the, Orange Theory Fitness and the Massage Envies of the world. That's all good and all that's great. And especially food. Everybody thinks franchising is only food, and you'll have to beg me to show you food. But I love the like niche businesses. The riches are in the niches. And we have a business that paints parking lots. So they build relationships with HOAs and property managers and commercial property owners. And the big guys come in and they asphalt it, but they don't like to come back and do the templating. Well, as civic laws change about handicap spaces and accessibility, those lines have, and then just seasonality, right? Through the winter and the weather, the lines have to be repainted. That's a franchise. Doesn't require any special skill or any, hardcore equipment, high liability insurance, highly reoccurring, B2B, Monday through Friday, low team of, that's so many amazing attributes to that business. There are businesses, the home services space is like since 2020, it's out of control. Like anything that caters to the nest, whether it's outside, so, lawns, outdoor lighting, patios, pools, mosquitoes, pest control in general, concrete stamping in the driveway that can make like beautiful, like stonework. Like these are franchises that you do not need experience. You probably have to love HGTV. I think you should love HGTV if you're in these businesses, but you don't have to have any experience. You don't have to be an interior designer, a landscaper. In fact, the less you know, the better, because the more coachable and open you're going to be to following the franchisor and letting them coach you on the way that they want you to do it. So that's a big category. The pet services, all the pet, from feeding our pets to grooming our pets, boarding pets, walking pets, picking up the dog poop in the backyard. Like there is so much money to be made. And I would argue, along with the beauty industry, the pet services industry is about as recession resistant as it gets, because us crazy dog people, I'm a crazy dog lady. We're just passionate about our dogs like we are our kids. We're not gonna stop spending money on our pets.
Well, that's great stuff. And so you mentioned the economy. Now, we're in uncertain times, and I know you have said that, franchises do well in good times and in bad. Talk about like interest rates and how do you buy these businesses? Is it harder in uncertain times like this, or as interest rates have increased, is it becoming harder for someone to buy into a franchise?
So that's a great question. So listen, when the interest rates are higher, the banks make more money. So guess what happens, Jim? There's more money available. So the interest rates are a little bit higher. And this is not my lane of expertise. I know enough to answer your question, but honestly, when you work with me, you're a candidate. I have friends in high places in lending, and all they do is help you get the loan for your new franchise. And first of all, just get educated about what options you have in lending. Because sometimes you come back and realize, I don't want to do that. But one of the best ways we've always funded franchises is by leveraging a 401k. Like for all of your alternative investors, this could be like perk up like a dog moment, So this is called the ROBS program, because you're literally robbing the IRS. The ROBS, rollover for business startup. It's a way to use assets tied up in a qualified retirement plan, 401k, that right now you can't touch without tax penalty. But for the purposes of starting a business, when you set up your corporation in a very specific way, there's a little loophole in the tax law. And we've been doing it since the 80s. It's totally legit. Almost all of my investors will use a portion or all of their 401k, especially all my career transition people, right, who are leaving or trying to leave. And it's a way for you to use your 401k without creating a taxable event. You have no interest rate back to a bank. That's amazing. And there's no time commitment. So if you go get a loan from the SBA, right, one of the things they're going to be looking at is your cash flow, because in the beginning, you might not be making money yet from the business, right? You're not going to open your doors and have cash flow in most businesses. Some, yes, but not all. So they want to make sure you can make your payment, because that payment comes due, right, immediately. Well, when you use your own 401k to self-fund, like be like your own bank, if you will, then there's no repayment term. You can put that money back into that 401k, which is your own 401k, because you're going to transition it to your own 401k plan owned by your company. And you'll put that money back in when your business is cash flowing and you have extra, and now you can put it back into this fund. So it is a very slick option that we do. But there's SBA loans, there's Apple Pie lending in certain, which is just like non-traditional lenders, private equity for certain types of franchises. Most franchisors will say, yeah, we're SBA approved, or we have these different banks already, you just need to have this much cash, you need to have this kind of credit score. But that's part of what I do with candidates, is guide them to the money conversation. And any questions you have early, we go right to our lender to get you pre-qualified within 48 hours. But if you're close to being a accredited investor, or just around over $500,000 in net worth with about 50 to 100,000 liquid, you're going to qualify for a lot of options. Because that's another myth, Jim. People think I need millions of dollars to invest in a franchise. That is absolutely untrue. Like, there are franchises that are in the like $50 to $150,000 range, as much as there are businesses that are up over $1 million.
So let's say I do this, I buy a franchise and I love it, and I knock it out of the park and have great success. Or maybe I figure out after a few years, hey, it's going well, but I'm not sure this is for me. What's the exit? Can I sell the franchise? How does the transition, if you're going to put money into something, you got to know how you get it back out, right? So what's the exit on these?
Absolutely. I believe all businesses are built to be sold. And so when you're looking to find a good franchisor, this is part of why you're buying people and vision. Because if that brand equity is not growing, what is the real value here, right? Just that you've traded some money that was invested here and put it into some business and built some business skills, and it's only 2x, you can only, sell it for 2x what you've built, right? You want a brand that like is arriving in 7, 10 years or 5 years, whatever, such that it has more value, right? More value, meaning that all the areas around you are sold. And so there's people waking up and learning about this brand and going, wow, like this happened with Orange Theory. It happened with Massage Envy. It happened with Planet Fitness. People that were members were like, gosh, I want to own one of these things. Well, by the time people were waking up and saying that, all of the areas are sold. And now you have the most established locations in a market. And that's when those owners raise their hand and go, well, you could pay me 6 times my EBITDA and I'll happily sell you my business. And they were getting it. People get it because as that brand is building, it feels like it's going to be, so be the pioneer who comes in at the beginning of the brand, I say, and rides that wave to the first peak and then cash out and move on. I believe all businesses, you asked me something similar to this in the beginning, and I don't think I answered that question because I don't think you should do this for 20 years. I don't think you should try to make an investment decision that you're going to be happy with in 15 or 20 years. That's way too many things to try to control. Control the next 5 to 7 years. And if you're in it and thriving and you love it, keep going. But if you bought it to go in for 7 to 10 years, most franchise agreements are 10-year agreements, and you can re-up. It's yours to sell or to re-up, to answer your question simply. In that franchise disclosure document, Item 17 tells you what you have to do to transfer your franchise to somebody else, meaning sell it, or to re-up, pay a small new franchise fee, paper filing fee, and to sign another 10-year agreement. But franchisees do it all for reasons of health or divorce, or just it wasn't what they thought and I needed to get out. I built it. It served its purpose. I'm ready to move on. Peak moment, sell for massive value. Or, hey, I just interviewed on my podcast a lovely couple in Pittsburgh, two women partners who started the British swim school, and they're in their 11th year. They just signed their second 10-year franchise agreement. They're having the time of their lives, and now it's a legacy because they're no longer involved in the day-to-day. Both of them had kids that grew up, and now their kids are running the franchise. So they just re-upped for their kids. Like, that's an amazing, it's swimming lessons. It's like one of these things. It's never going to become obsolete. So it's got at least another 10 years. So there's so many different ways to shape this into someone's life. The most important thing you take away from this podcast today is just the business cash flowing return should be more than the alternative investment. And the heart of the person that owns this business has that passion to be the business owner, to grow in the personal and professional ways that businesses require us to grow. In the business, unlike the land I own, I have to grow personally and professionally. I have to figure out how to give, how to serve people in order to receive, right? That's a business. You give, and then for that giving, people pay you money. Well, you're buying the how from the franchisor, but you still have your own learning curve to learn how to do it and to do it with ease and to scale that wealth, right? To scale that giving so that you can receive more and more and more and build multiple units. But that's the key difference between my alternative investments, my land, my oil and gas thing, my real estate syndication, that just all these things pay me dividends. I'm even a 5% equity owner in a company, a franchise company that pays me amazing dividends, and it's totally passive for me. But that's your network is your net worth. Because of who I am in the industry, I was offered this opportunity to sort of be on a board and participate at a very, very high level and, put in a lot of money, but that investment was the greatest investment I've ever made in my life for the dividends it pays me. So, but that's because I've bloomed where I'm planted, and I was in the right place at the right time. And it's just positioning,
No, and that makes a lot of sense. The last question we always ask is, what's a great podcast that you listen to? You cannot say create wealth through franchising, because that is your own podcast, and that will already be in the show notes.
Or Left Field Investors.
Well, you can always say that one.
Yeah. So I listen to so many because I'm a personal development junkie. I'm on the spot right now. So let me think. Yes, there's all kinds of alternative investment podcasts I listen to, like Chris Miles on Money Ripples, Wealth Without Wall Street, Russ and Joey. I'm partnered with them in a couple of businesses. So alternative investments, I follow their shows, as well as the Left Field Investor Show. But I'm a mindset junkie. I love personal development because I feel like when my mindset and my vision, when I'm focused on who I am and how I need to show up in the world, and I bring my best self to all that I do, and that's how I grow. I'm on the Mind Valley app. It's not really a podcast, but in the Mind Valley app, there's just amazing opportunity for personal development. I don't know if you've ever heard of that app, but Vishen Lakhiani is he's amazing.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely put that in the show notes. And then if listeners want to learn more about you or get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So we've created a way for you to figure out if you're fit to own a franchise. If you go to the Daly Coach, my last name, Daly, you can take a little quiz. And then from that, you'll actually receive my ebook on how to pick a winning franchise. So go right to thedalycoach.com, take the quiz, find out if you're fit, and then download my free ebook. And then from there, of course, you can contact me directly if you're just excited and ready to begin. I would absolutely love to meet you.
And what's the contact information?
Thedalycoach.com.
Perfect.
Daly.
Awesome. Well, that'll all be in the show notes. Thank you so much for being on the podcast again. This was fantastic. We appreciate it.
Jim, you're fantastic. You ask great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Left Field Investors is a community dedicated to limited partner investors who are interested in building wealth through real estate investing. The community is focused on education, networking, and engagement with quality operators and partners. We provide tools, webinars, and a forum where members can discuss everything related to real estate investing, including deals, operators, investment strategies, and much more. Coming soon, we're adding a new tool, sponsor reviews. This will be a place where our members can rate and review operating partners to further help each other in our investment journeys. Check us out at leftfieldinvestors.com.
I always enjoy talking to Kim, man. She has a passion for this business and just a passion for life. So it is fun to talk with her, and you always learn so much. And, we talked about franchises that they work in good times or bad times, because, even if you don't think of it as a necessity, she used the gym, right? I don't need to go to the gym. She needs to go to the gym. So as long as you pick the right franchise for you, it's going to work in good times and in bad times. That should be part of the conversation you have when you're deciding which franchise to go through. And, when you think about building wealth, that's why we're part of this Left Field Investors community. We want to build wealth. We want financial freedom and whatever that means to you. And, we talk about this a lot, but wealth is built through either owning a business or owning real estate. If you look around at all the wealthy people that or all the famous wealthy people, not many of them build up their wealth in their 401k, right? It's because they owned a business or they got into real estate. And, we do that to escape the W-2, maybe, but that doesn't mean you have to quit working. It might mean that for you, but it also might be, hey, you just want to be your own boss. And if that's the case, then a franchise might be right for you. And it is hard. It's hard to pick a franchise. And that's why it's hard to be a passive investor in real estate syndications. But if you have a community or someone to guide you, then it makes it easier. And that's what Kim does, right? She helps you get through the process of selecting a franchise and finding the companies and doing all of that. That makes it less scary, makes it easier. Just like, hopefully, at least Left Field Investors does that for your syndication investments, makes it a place where it's not as scary. You have other people that are doing it and you kind of help each other along the way. So that's kind of how I view Kim and the franchise opportunity there. And then when you're picking a business or a franchise industry, you want to make sure it fits your personality and it's something you're interested in. You don't have to be, like she mentioned, roofing. You don't have to be totally passionate about roofing, but the business, the actual what you would be doing day to day needs to fit your personality and fit what you want to do. And none of this is going to be completely passive. If you're like me and you just want to be 100% passive or as much passive as you can be, then, franchise isn't for you. And you need to recognize that someone has to operate the business, whether that means hiring people to run the business or not. But, if you hire a general manager and they quit without giving you notice, guess who's the general manager? You are, until you find a new one. So you need to make sure you're understanding all of the things that go into operating a business. And if it sounds good to you, maybe give it a try, go for it. You need to put your either money or time or both into it, as Kim said. That's critical to understand what you're getting into. And the more money you put into it, probably the less time, but still you got to make sure that you are able to allocate resources to this. And I think I said this at the beginning, but man, you can just tell Kim loves franchises. And if you're going to go and get into a franchise, who better to do it than someone that is so passionate about it and will take the time to walk you through it and help you, because they love franchises so much that they're going to help you. And so that's why we had Kim on again, because just interesting, and just the thirst for knowledge about franchises means that she would be a great coach and person to help you out. So that's all we have for this time. We'll catch you next time in the left field.
Thanks for hanging out in the left field with us today. If you are interested in becoming a left fielder, you can find us on the World Wide Web at www.leftfieldinvestor.com and click the subscribe button to join our community. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe to the show on your podcast player so you don't miss an episode. If you really enjoyed the show, a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts would be appreciated.
This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on the show should be considered financial advice. Before making any decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Passive Investing from Left Field and Left Field Investors. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.